It's hard for people to admit, but the Bible, as translated today, presents two gods.
Two-Face. Like the Batman villain?
If that helps you.
There's the God who says he is love and that he is good.
I love everybody. That's my thing, man.
And then there's the God that says he is good sometimes, but if you cross him, he'll crush you.
We should just reset.
Whoa!
It's a dead end.
Hey,
I'd rather just start fresh.
I'll tell you what.
10 minutes,
Okay?
and then I'm killing you.
And really, for somebody who's being honest about it, it's very confusing.
That doesn't make sense.
You know, I was taught that the whole Bible is perfect and there's nothing wrong with it, and there's no contradictions. And so when you find a contradiction, it's not a contradiction, and just believe what I say.
I did call earlier or later when then I.
And they come up with the darndest explanations.
What number did you call?
249er.
Did I catch a niner in there? Were you calling from a walkie-talkie?
No, it was cordless.
Trying to reconcile the two different gods. What do? I mean, it just stays in the back of people's minds, and it's confusing. And thinking about law, you go back to the Old Testament, the word law. I just can't believe that God brought the children of Israel out of Egypt. They've been through generations of trauma. They're screwed up in their minds. And the first thing that God does is give them a bunch of rules and laws to follow. And that if they don't follow, they're in trouble.
God, yeah! What?
And I think, boy, that, even we know that when you're dealing with a child or a inhuman that's been through tremendous trauma, you don't fix them by giving them a bunch of rules and laws.
Yeah.
But apparently that's the way God thinks.
Right.
So we're better and kinder and know how to handle traumatized people better than God does.
Right.
It's been ingrained in people that this is the truth, and they've heard it for so long that they can't imagine it not being true, and they'll even fight you on it.
Somebody I knew got upset at me because they thought something about me. And when we talked, I was like, take that thing that you thought about me and tell me if that fits with the rest of what you think of me. Like, you think that over here, I'm this hateful person in this thing. But when you look at how I behave and think and talk 99% of the time, does that make sense with who I am? And they were like, no, that's why it was like shocking to me. And I was like, yeah, because that's not who I am. That you're creating an image of me in your head that isn't accurate, and you have proof that it's not accurate. Lee's not like that here and here and here and here, but Lee is like that here. And I was like, that doesn't make sense, And they had to admit, oh, no, you're right. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't line up. And we do that. I think that's what you're talking about. The two-faced God, right?
Yeah.
Well, he's an evil slave master, but he's also a loving father who freed the children of Israel. But he also put them into a new captivity because he's like that. And it's like, no. Did he free them because he loves them? Well, then why would he enslave them? That just doesn't jive.
Because we believe the lie.
Yeah.
And every human being does.
Mm-hmm.
We're used to not being able to absolutely know that somebody is representing themselves correctly.
Right.
Their lives as watching a program on TV the other night, and it was the human interaction and how the people thought this one guy was a certain way,
Yeah.
and they never knew. But if they'd seen what the camera was showing us,
Yeah.
he had two faces.
Yeah.
We so expect the possibility of that, um, that it's scary. I mean, you've got a husband or a wife that you think is faithful, all the while they're running around on you, and we somehow take the experience of that and we apply that to God.
Yeah. It's interesting because there are parts in the Bible where it'll say God is loving, but then it will also say God is just, right? Which means corrects things that are incorrect. And then we'll hear a story, like, oh, he put on rules or he wiped out a nation or whatever. And you'll see it as two sides of a coin when in reality it's not. I have a wide range of emotions, right? Like I'll love my kids, I do love my kids, but when they do something that's hurtful, I don't not love them, but I may go, okay, you're grounded. But it doesn't mean I don't love them. So I think God's reactions in those things are always the exact appropriate, correct action. Mine are not always. I may understand it wrong or overreact, get angry. I could, use it as a teachable moment or whatever. And I decide, oh man, that pissed me off. So I'm going to, lash out or whatever. But yeah, it is true of us. We do have these facets that all kind of fit together, but then we can use those like way off kilter. And I think God never does. I think he's always
we project our image onto God.
Yes, because we will overreact or, yell when we shouldn't or run around on a spouse or whatever. And that stuff, yeah, that is true of us. And so we take that and put it to God instead of saying, oh, well, he's always going to react perfectly. And that's our goal. And like that's put on to us. We take ours and put it up instead of taking his and bring it down. Or not down and up, but
Well, I wrote this down the other day. I was telling you, we have replaced knowing the God, because in the New Testament, God usually has a definite article in front of it, even though the translators don't acknowledge that.
Mm-hmm.
But we have replaced knowing the God, which means him, the God, with knowing the Bible. And so people, it's like what we need, if we're going to understand the truth about the Bible and what God said, we first need to know him.
Yeah.
But we've been taught that the only way to know him is to read the Bible.
Yeah.
To study the Bible, to memorize the Bible, to know the Bible. And so the Bible becomes God.
Yeah.
And so if the New Testament is a bunch of letters, primarily letters, and you find that letter, as you said not too long ago, you find that a letter on the street, the only way you can interpret it is based on what you know about the person that wrote the letter. And if you don't know the person that wrote the letter, God only knows what your understanding of the letter will be. And is it likely that it'll be accurate and correct? No, because you don't know who wrote it. So you can only base your understanding of what is said based on who you are and what you've experienced in life. And that leaves you in a bad situation, because we've got all of these people, Christians in particular, that read the Bible and they know here's what the Bible seems to not say. It seems to say the Bible says. Yeah. And so this is who God is, and however they interpret it, and however the people that translated it interpreted it, it's guesswork, and it's based on, we're basing our understanding of God on ourselves, on
Yeah.
what we know and understand about ourselves, and thus about God. And it's crazy, because God is so easy to understand, but the only way that you ever are going to understand him is if he gives you understanding of him.
Yeah.
You have to go to him to find out who he is.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, you don't go to the Bible to find out who God is. You will learn some things about God in the
Mhm.
Bible, and as he instructs you, then the Bible will teach you things about God. God will use the Bible to explain himself. But because these translations are a lot of times just opinions,
Yeah.
they're just the opinion of people who have read lexicons, or people who have gone back into history and studied words and how they were used 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, and then they go back and they look. If you look at some of the lexicons, they'll tell you what they think Aristotle meant by this word, what Plato meant by this word, what Sophocles meant by this word, and others that meant by these words.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of guesswork,
Yeah.
but it's all based on what we know about ourselves and our experiences in life.
Mhm.
And that's just not correct. That's wrong.
Yeah.
And so we've got a massive Bible with people having massive wrong understanding, because their understanding hasn't come from God. They'll say it's come from God.
Mm.
They hear that inner voice. They don't know when that inner voice they hear is
Right.
from God, or who's it from? Where's it from?
Yeah.
They assume that whatever they hear, it agrees with what they've heard someplace else, and
Yeah.
so it must be the truth. And it gets so confusing. And it's like, gosh, God himself will teach you who he is. He's your daddy. He's
Yeah.
your father.